Today we are talking about coffee roasting, and particularly how you roast your beans at home and how you can record the data so that you can improve it or repeat that process next time. In the commercial environment, we have our laptops connected to our roaster and we get all this data that comes through from the multiple different sensors that are in the roast, and that's what we use to either repeat a really great recipe or start to analyze the different sections of a roast. And if you don't have that information, you're really just guessing. So today you can see we've got a home roasting setup here. It's a bread maker with a heat gun that's been converted to a roaster. We've got some green bean, we've got a multimeter which is going to measure just the temperature of those beans. We've got our phone, trusty phone for a stopwatch, and our cool Artisti roast tracking graph. So I'll tell you how to get that one at the end of the video. So what we're going to do is we're going to start and fill this out and take you through the whole process. Right, so we're going to fill out our form to start with our green bean origin. So this is a Colombian bean that we're doing today. And the farm estate, it's actually just a Popayan regional coffee. And the process, it's actually a washed. And the crop year is 2021. So it's good to have a data of what you're actually doing so you compare these year in, year out. Now the density of this bean we'd measured earlier, which is 723 grams. So density, there's another video on that one which talks about how you can do it, but it's how many grams per litre of water or volume essentially. Our charge weight is the amount of green bean that we're starting with when we're going to pop in a roast. So we're using 300 grams inside the bread maker today, and our drop-in temp is going to be an aim of 200 degrees. So I'm going to start this onto dough mode, and basically that means that the little propellers inside there are moving around the green bean. Just going to get some heat into there. Now I'm going to aim for 200 degrees, so when it gets to about 220, we'll pull the lid off, pop in the beans, and we're going to have to start our timer. And then we're going to record every minute from there what temperature reads on this graph. And there's a couple of different stages we're going to keep an eye on to then make sure we get the critical parts of the roast recorded to be able to analyse it at the end. Okay, so we're at 215 degrees, so 220. I'm going to start my timer. I'm going to drop in these beans. There we go. So we need to record our drop-in temperature, and I've got that written spaced down here at the bottom, so 200 degrees. And we're going to mark it on our graph as well at our 0 point. Now we're keeping an eye on what happens with this temperature. We're waiting for those beans to take up the heat that has either been preheated or not being sucked in from the heat we're forcing on it now. So it's going to be the lowest temperature that we're going to come up with. So we've dropped down to now 99.1, 98, 97. It's starting to come down. So this is where we're going to have a positive impact on the beans. Basically they're sucking up all the extra heat that's there. So we're down to 92, 93. We're coming up to a minute, so I want to actually record that. So at 91.6, there we go, it's right on it. 91.6 at 1 minute was our turning point. So now we're going to keep an eye on how quickly these beans are actually heating up. And if it starts to go up too quick, we can start to reduce the heat. In the first part of the roast, we're starting to dry that roast. So generally you have a bit more heat, and as you get towards the end of the roast, you start to taper it off. But if it happens too quickly, we want to reduce it. So I'm just looking at this, and within a minute, we're going up quite quickly. We're nearly going to be around the 25 seconds degrees per minute at the moment. So I know that's already cranking along. So I'm going to bring that right back to number 2, heat setting on the heat gun. So we're coming up to 2 minutes, and our temp is 129. There we go. So let's put little dots on the graph And you can see even straight away, we had a lot of heat that got onto those beans really quickly. I'm just going to keep looking at this all the way through. So I want to slow that down a little bit. That was definitely a very quick recovery. So next time I wouldn't leave it on 3, I'd come back to 2. So right now those beans are moving around. We're getting not only some conductive heat from the actual metal on the actual base of the bread maker, they're getting the convection from the blowed fan force heat from the heat gun. You can see a little bit of smoke starting to come out there as well. It's still going pretty quick, so I'm going to go down to setting 1 on the heat gun there. I want to slow it right down a bit. So now we're sitting at 144, just about to come up to 3 minutes. There we go, 3 minutes, 145. There we go. So you can see now we definitely halved the rate of rise that we had from our turning point up to our first minute. So now hopefully we're going to get a rate of rise. I'm looking for around 10 to 11 if I can achieve it on here, up to what we call the yellowing point, or which is about 165 degrees normally on our commercial roasts. And that's where we have our end of dry. So basically we're just trying to take the moisture out of the beans up to this point. Do it reasonably gradually. We don't want to go as quick as I was doing before, because we want to maintain, well actually I'm just having a quick look here, it's actually going down now, so I'm going to chuck a bit of extra heat in there, try and come back up. So that actually dropped back down to 140 on the dot now, and it's probably going to come back up hopefully with extra heat. So this is where you've got to make sure your heat is increasing and it's actually getting penetration into those beans. They've sucked that up really quickly, so I'm just going to get a bit more heat in there. Okay, so now we're going back up again. So those beans just sucked up all that heat. And that's basically the cell structure and the moisture coming out of the bean. And that's what's basically absorbing all the heat. There we go, so we're kicking back up again. I missed the 4 minute mark there with a little challenge, but let's say it dropped down to, I think 135. And at minute 5, we're coming up to 154. There you go, there's a bit of an example of exactly why we track it. The heat went up, dropped right down, and we had to increase the heat again. So, not as scientific as the roaster behind us, but hey, it's a bit of fun. It's going to give us a better quality roast when you've got something at home. So, coming up to 5.5 minutes, it's at 168. So that's at 5.5 minutes, that is our turning point. That is our end dry. So just writing that 5.5 minutes. Now, basically that's the end of the dry, which is the starting point of our Maillard and sort of development of caramelizing sugars and reducing our acids in the coffee roast. So this time, right up to first crack, is the Maillard reaction that's going to happen. So we'll wait and see how much we can stretch that out. I want to try and slow that down a little bit. It's definitely pumping along. So 6 minutes just went by there while I was yakking away, but we've missed it. So at 6:30, we're 194. So we're cranking along really fast at the moment. I'm going to reduce that heat right back and try and taper it off. This is going to be quite a quick fast roast for a 300 grammer in this little bread maker. There we go. I'm actually starting to hear a bit of a crack starting on a couple of those beans. So it's 196 degrees. It's actually losing a bit of heat at the moment. tapering right off, so I do need to add more heat there. So you get the first crack when one or two beans start to actually pop, but you want a rolling crack where it's really constantly starting to crack away on a lot of those beans in the batch. So as first cracks happen, that's actually absorbed a lot of heat, like so much heat. 7.5, it's actually down to 189. Coming into the 8-minute mark, we're 188. So we're actually reducing temperature a lot there. So if you weren't monitoring the heat gun right now, you wouldn't know that these temperatures are going up and down and the beans are getting heat and then they're not getting heat. And that's basically how you're changing the caramelization and the acids in the sugar. So you want to be very constant and be able to control that. So as much as these figures are all over the place right now, it's good that we know what's happening. Otherwise, we just think it's going perfect and it was roasting nice. So we are getting a nice solid crack coming through now. You might be able to pick that up in the audio. And we're coming right back up now to 200 degrees. We're at 9 minutes. And I would say that's first crack right now for sure. At 2:02 is first crack. And you can really hear that pumping along. Bit of smoke coming out now as well. I'm going to reduce the heat off because I really want to slow this right down and just coast it along from here. So we're now into the development stage of the roast. So this is how dark you're going to make your coffee. It's going to be a light filter roast, a cinnamon or a full city perhaps. That's what we roast a lot of our blends at. So we're just at 216 degrees. It's really starting to get that rate of rise really slow. Ideally, if we can be around 3 to 5 degrees rate of rise per minute right here, that would be ideal. So we're coming up to 10 minutes. It's right now at 218. Yep, great, so 218 at 10 minutes, which is great. You can't see the beans. Quick little sneak peek there, they're looking really good. I don't want to go too dark on here. I'm going to go another 1 minute. I don't want to burn the beans, and I think that's going to be perfect for us. So, how do you deal with these? A bin lid, or if you had a colander or something like that, get yourself a fan as well. This part's a little bit messy, I'll be honest. So 222 at 1040 for us is going to be my mark. $223, awesome. So I'm going to remove the heat, take off the lid. Turn it off, pull out our heat probe. Here we go. Turn on our fan. There you have it, some roasted beans. You got to cool these down as quick as you can. Now, I don't have a colander, but that's definitely a better way to do it. These are still cooking away, so the quicker you can get this cooled, the better it's going to be. Now if you come in close, you can have a look at how awesome this roast is. There you go. From a bread maker, that is pretty damn awesome. There you go. So I'm going to let that cool away now. We probably won't drink these, but we'll let them cool. I might spread them out just a little bit. There's still plenty of heat left in there. I'm going to come back and have a look at our chart. So We've now got to the stage where we can really analyse what has happened. So our end time, I believe, was about 11 minutes 40, I think it was. So I want to make a note of that. That is our total roast time. Now we can draw on here our graph, but there are a couple of key points. So we've got our end roast, we've got our drying point at 165 degrees, and we noted down at 202 being our first crack. So this is our 202 here. That is our first crack. That's our dry. So we've got a little spot down the bottom here where we can do a few calculations. Now I'm just going to draw this in a line so you can sort of see what happened with our roast. So we started up nice and high. We got down to our turning point. That's when we had a positive impact on the beans. I started to lose track of what was happening with the roast. They absorbed a lot of heat. It went sharply down. We had a huge loss in rate of rise really quickly, but then I put the heat back on and you can see it just started to climb nicely. And then around just before crack, we lost heat. So the beans really absorbed any of that latent heat or basically the energy we had that was rolling along. We lost that. So it did drop down just before first crack, and then we recovered back up to first crack at 202 degrees. So that is the other section in time that we are going to measure. And from there right up to when we finished our roast. So down the bottom here you can see that we've got our dry, our time, our percent, the Maillard phase, the time, percent development, and the time and the percent. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our 11 minutes 40. We're going to grab ourselves our calculator here. And we're just going to work out how much time is from each segment, the three different stages of the roast. So we've said at 165 it's 5 minutes 50. So for our dry, our time is 5 minutes 50, and 5.5, divide that back into 11.4, is 48.2% of the roast is our drying stage. Then from our dry stage to our first crack, in time, our first crack happened, it looked like just over 9 minutes, probably 9, let's call it 9:20. I missed that one on there, I'm sorry. So if we go 9:20, that is. So you go your 11.4 minus your 5.5. No, sorry, 9:20. Get the maths right here, Luke. Minus 5.5 equals 3.7. So we've got 3.7 minutes, and then you divide that back into your 11.4, which gives us 32.4% of the roast is our Maillard phase, which is the caramelizing sugars, getting rid of the acids. And that's a key part of flavour that you really want to concentrate on. So then we have the balance up to 11.4. So if we go our total roast time 11.4 minus our 9.2, we're at 2.2 minutes. And if we take 2.2 and divide that back into our 11.4, we're at 19.29% of roast development. So there you go, guys. They are the three phases. I hope that maths is right. I'm pretty sure I'm right with the calculator there. Tell me if I was wrong. But that now gives us a guideline to see what stages of the roast we want to change. We've got a bit of an issue there, which happened in the dry. We went really high, then we lost some heat. That happened just before first crack as well. And the development at the end was probably a bit too quick. We basically developed the coffee in 2 minutes. Now, you could now go back and analyse these at every individual minute and have the difference between the temperatures from the start of a minute to an end of a minute, and that is how you get your rate of rise. So, I hope that's helped you guys. This is going to be a downloadable PDF. We'll chuck a link down the bottom for you there. And I hope that's going to help you assess how you roast coffee at home. I'd love to hear your feedback. Tell us how you're going. Tell us your successes, tell us your failures. It'd be awesome to know what you're doing different at home. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this and it's going to help you roast. We'll catch you next time. Cheers. Oh man, that was intense. That was crazy. Actually, let me turn a few things off. Get this out of the way. That is mess everywhere, the probe. I've got the heat gun on still. Oh, turn that off. Oh, that's hot. All right, those beans. Actually, that's pretty good. That's pretty even. That's a really nice little roast, I must admit. Yeah, it's a bit more than full city. Where before first crack, there's a bit of tipping on there. A little bit on the end of the bean there, where it's exploded. That basically means that we put the moisture out a bit too quick there, so that when it's exploded out the water. There you go, there's some tipping. That's a nice flat spot on the bean there. Big burn mark. Then he's got one that's got stuck. He copped the heat, that one. Got some oils already coming out. But defect wise, there's only, at a quick glance, they're the only 2 defects I can see in that whole roast. Smells good. Well, we'll give that a taste, see how it comes up.